Let me ask you something. Have you ever been stuck in that cycle? You know the one. The emotional ping pong where you take 2 steps forward only to have them pull away, leaving you questioning everything. It feels like no matter what you do, you're just stuck reaching, chasing, hoping while they retreat. Sound familiar? Now, here's the truth that you need to hear right now. You are not powerless in this situation. You are not a victim to their fear. And you are not doomed to keep spinning in this cycle of uncertainty, waiting for them to choose you. What I'm about to tell you is going to change everything, because the secret to breaking this cycle isn't in chasing them, begging for attention, or trying to fix the situation. No, the secret is in shifting your energy. It's about making a decision right now to stop reacting to their withdrawal and instead take full control of your own emotional response. So what if I told you that in just 72 hours, you could flip the script? In the next 3 days, you could start to break free from this emotional chaos and regain your power. This isn't about waiting for them to change. It's about you changing how you respond, changing how you show up for yourself, and shifting the entire dynamic between you two. The cycle has been repeating because you've been reacting, but I'm going to show you how to reflect instead. Reflection, not reaction. That's how you take control. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the exact steps to make this shift. Are you ready to stop chasing? Ready to stop reacting? Because that's the first step in the 72-hour reset. Let's get started. Now, before we dive into the 72-hour reset, I need you to really understand the cycle you've been caught in. Because once you see it clearly for what it is, you'll recognize that breaking free is within your control. Let's break it down. You're in this pattern, right? The avoidant pulls away, and what do? You feel that sense of panic, that overwhelming urge to close the distance. You might try to reach out more, express your feelings, or even plead for them to open up. And I get it. When someone pulls away, especially someone you care about, it feels personal, but it's not. It's not about you. It's about their wiring, their fear of vulnerability, their fear of intimacy. You see, the avoidant has a nervous system that's wired differently. When they feel overwhelmed or exposed, they shut down, retreat into themselves, and it feels like a survival mechanism. They don't mean to hurt you. They're trying to protect themselves. And here's the kicker. The more you chase them, the more they retreat. Why? Because emotional vulnerability without safety feels dangerous to them. They pull away because they're trying to protect their sense of autonomy and control, not because they don't care. And this is where most people get stuck. You try harder, push harder, and each time you do, it only reinforces their fear. It creates a pattern. You chase, they retreat. You feel rejected, and the cycle continues. But here's the truth. This pattern is a result of fear, not a lack of love. The avoidant fears losing themselves in a relationship. They fear that intimacy will strip them of their autonomy, their freedom. But listen, you can break this. And here's the truth that will set you free. It's not about convincing them to open up. It's about creating an emotional environment where both of you feel safe. When you shift your energy and stop reacting to their silence with more pursuit, you begin to reset the dynamic. You start to regulate your emotional response instead of letting their behavior dictate your feelings. You can choose a different path. You can break the cycle by understanding that their distance isn't a rejection of you. It's a sign of their inner struggle. And that's the first step in shifting this whole dynamic. Let's be honest. The moment you stop chasing, something shifts in them too. They feel a shift in the energy. The power dynamics change, but you have to make the first move. You've got to take control of your emotions. You've got to stop reacting and start reflecting. This isn't about blaming them. It's about understanding how their fear shows up and how your actions, driven by your own fear of abandonment, have fed into the cycle. Once you see the pattern, you'll realize that you can change it. Okay, now that we've got a clearer picture of the cycle, let's talk about why reacting to the avoidance only makes things worse. We've all been there. They pull away, and it stirs something in you. It's that feeling of being abandoned, of being left behind, and suddenly your anxiety spikes. You feel the need to act, to say something, to close that gap. And so what do? You react. Maybe you call, text, or send one of those emotional messages, hoping they'll get it, hoping they'll come back. But every time you do that, you're pouring fuel onto the fire of the cycle. Let's really break this down. When you react, whether it's through frustration, pleading, anger, or even guilt, you're doing something very important. You're triggering their fear response. You're making them feel like they're being cornered, like their sense of freedom and autonomy is under threat. When you react emotionally, it sends a signal to their nervous system that says, this is too much. So what happens? They pull back even further. I know this might feel counterintuitive. After all, when you're in love with someone and they withdraw, your first instinct is to chase. But here's what you need to realize. Chasing someone who pulls away only reinforces the fear they feel about being too close. And what happens when someone feels threatened? They retreat. It's like trying to get closer to a wild animal. It just makes them more fearful and defensive. So when you act from a place of anxiety, desperation, or frustration, you're giving your emotional power away. Your emotional state is controlled by their actions, and that keeps the cycle going. What you're feeling, your emotional response, becomes a mirror of their fear, and that's exactly what they want to avoid. So they push back, and you feel rejected. But listen, the moment you stop reacting to their behavior, when you stop giving in to that emotional roller coaster, you will start to regain control of your energy. You'll stop feeding into their fear. You'll stop the chase. And guess what happens next? They feel the shift. They'll feel that space, that detachment. And that's when you begin to see the power dynamic change. Let me be clear here. You are not powerless. The more you react, the more you reinforce their fear and anxiety. But when you choose to reflect, when you choose to stay calm, grounded, and emotionally centered, you change everything. You create an emotional environment where they can begin to feel safe enough to engage on their own terms. You don't have to make them come to you. You just need to stop trying to force it. Because when you stop reacting, something incredible happens. You teach them that intimacy doesn't have to feel like a loss of control. You teach them that connection doesn't have to be chaotic. You teach them that love can exist without pressure. And that, my friend, is when you start seeing the shift. Now that we've unpacked why reacting fuels the fire, let's dive into the real game changer, reflection. Let me ask you a question. What would happen if instead of reacting to their withdrawal, you took a deep breath and chose to reflect? What if instead of rushing to fill the silence with your fear or anxiety, you allowed yourself the space to process your emotions, calm your nervous system, and respond with clarity? Here's what happens. Reflection gives you control. And when you control your emotional state, you control the energy in the relationship. Reflection isn't passive, it's active. It's a conscious decision to pause, to step back, and to decide that you won't be ruled by your emotions in the moment. When you choose reflection, you are choosing to take a moment to understand what you're truly feeling. You're choosing to regulate yourself instead of letting your emotions drive your actions. Think about it. The last time you were triggered by their distance, how quickly did you react? Maybe you rushed to call or text. Maybe you started spiraling with worst-case thoughts. Now imagine if, instead of that, you paused, took a deep breath, recognized that your feelings of rejection aren't about your worth, they're about the fear that's been triggered inside of you. Reflection is about acknowledging that their withdrawal doesn't mean you are unworthy or unwanted. It means they are struggling with their own inner conflict. It's about seeing their actions as a signal of their fear, not an indication of your value. When you shift from reacting to reflecting, you stop internalizing their behavior as a reflection of you, and you start seeing it as a reflection of their fear of intimacy and vulnerability. Here's why this works. When you reflect, you allow space for emotional clarity. And when you have emotional clarity, you become the steady presence in the relationship. You stop the emotional roller coaster, you stop feeding into the drama, and you create a sense of calm and safety for both of you. That's what changes everything. The avoidant doesn't want to feel trapped in a relationship, but they do want to feel safe. And when you reflect instead of react, you give them that emotional space to feel safe enough to move toward you on their own terms. So here's your first reflection exercise. The next time you feel triggered by their withdrawal, pause. Do not immediately reach out. Instead, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? Is it fear of abandonment? Anxiety? Is it an old wound from the past? Reflect on why you feel the way you do without acting on it. Let the emotions pass through you instead of rushing to fix the situation. This will ground you, and it will change the way you engage with them. Reflection is a tool of emotional maturity. It's about choosing not to react in the heat of the moment, but to let your nervous system calm down so you can respond from a place of self-regulation, not fear. And when you do that, you become the steady force in the relationship. You become the anchor they can count on, instead of the emotional chaos that pushes them further away. All right, now that you understand the power of reflection, let's talk about what you can do in the next 72 hours to flip the cycle. Because let me tell you something, these next 3 days can change everything. If you follow this process, you will begin to reclaim your power, shift the energy in your relationship, and break free from the endless chase. You're going to reset the dynamic in a way that is healthy, powerful, and most importantly, aligned with your own emotional growth. Let's break this down into 3 distinct phases, each one designed to bring you back to your center and stop the cycle of reacting. Remember, this is about the long-term strategy of emotional regulation, not just a temporary fix. Day 1. Reset your energy. The first day is all about resetting your emotional state. You've likely been caught up in a pattern of anxiety, fear, and emotional reactivity. When you've been chasing an avoidant, your energy is all over the place. Anxiety, uncertainty, even desperation. So today, we're going to stop all of that. This is the day you press pause on everything. You are not texting. You are not calling. You are not running to fill the silence with your own anxiety. This is your detox day. Here's the deal. When you stop reacting, you create space for yourself to breathe. I want you to use this first day to ground yourself. Get back into your own life, take care of your body, do things that make you feel calm, centered, and grounded. Meditate, journal, go for a walk, whatever it takes to help you reset. You are not waiting for them to contact you. You are choosing to be with yourself, and in that space, you are saying, I don't need them to feel whole. I don't need their attention to validate my worth. By the end of this day, you will have created some emotional distance. You'll feel more like yourself. You've stopped chasing, and now you're choosing peace. Day 2, reclaim your power through boundaries. By day 2, you've taken back your emotional control. But now we're going to reclaim your power through boundaries. Let me be very clear. Boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are how you teach people to respect your energy. It's not about pushing people away. It's about protecting your emotional state. On this second day, I want you to set your boundary. This isn't about making demands or trying to control the situation. It's about respecting yourself and your needs. If you've been chasing, now it's time to stop. You've created space, and now you will not chase or plead anymore. Here's the powerful thing about boundaries. When you stop reacting and start showing up for yourself, the energy of the relationship shifts. You stop giving away your power through emotional pursuit. You give them space to decide for themselves. You don't need to announce your boundary. You just need to embody it. You need to show them through your actions that you will no longer settle for the emotional chaos you've been experiencing. You are clear, grounded, and emotionally sovereign. And guess what? This boundary will feel like a shift to them. They'll feel the space you've created. And if they care, they'll start to wonder, what happened? Where did the chase go? Day 3, calm response, not chase. Now, by day 3, you've done the hard work of resetting and reclaiming your power. This is when you begin to see the shifts happening. On this final day of the 72-hour reset, it's time to respond calmly, not chase. If they reach out, I want you to respond, but do not respond from a place of desperation. You're not rushing to fill the silence. You're not scrambling for answers. You are responding calmly and confidently from a space of peace. Here's the key. Do not get emotional. You've done the inner work. You've reflected. And now you're responding from emotional strength. The next time they reach out, you will not let your anxiety take over. Instead, you'll acknowledge their presence, but you will not give in to the old pattern of chasing, begging, or over-explaining. Your calm response says, I'm okay, and I'm fine without you. If you want to connect, great. If not, I'm still okay. I am whole on my own. By the end of day 3, you will see the dynamic begin to change. You're no longer chasing them, but you're also no longer giving them space to pull away. You're standing firm in your own emotional power. If they feel the shift, if they feel your steadiness, they will begin to re-engage. But this time, it will be because they feel safe, not because they're being pursued. Conclusion of the 72-hour reset. So in just 72 hours, what have you done? You've reset your energy. You've reclaimed your emotional power, and you've responded calmly instead of reacting with fear or anxiety. In just 3 days, you've shifted from a place of emotional chaos to a place of peace, clarity, and emotional sovereignty. But let me remind you, this isn't about manipulation. This isn't about getting them to love you or making them feel guilty. This is about you growing. This is about you learning how to stay grounded and at peace no matter what happens in your relationship. And here's the magic part. When you show up with peace and clarity, they will start to feel it. They will feel the absence of your chase, and they will feel the calm of your presence. They'll feel safe to approach, to open up, and to re-engage, but only if they feel it's their choice. Now that you've gone through the 72-hour reset, let's talk about what you can expect. Because here's the thing. When you stop chasing, when you stop reacting, and when you start to reflect and reset your energy, something incredible starts to happen. And this shift is not just external, it's internal. You may be wondering, what's next? What happens when you stop playing the game and begin to stand firm in your own emotional power? Let me tell you, this is when the magic happens, how they will respond. When you start this process of emotional self-regulation, there's going to be a noticeable shift in how they respond. And here's the key. They're going to start noticing your absence. When you stop chasing, they feel something they haven't felt before, space. Now, this doesn't mean they're going to come running right away, but it does mean they're going to feel your emotional steadiness. And that steadiness is incredibly powerful. You've probably noticed this before. The more you chase, the more they pull away. But the opposite is true too. The more you stand in your emotional strength, the more they'll feel that emotional calm. They might even start to feel a bit confused at first. After all, they're used to you reacting and chasing. But when they feel that you're not reacting to their retreat, when they see that you're not desperate for their attention, something shifts in them. They start to feel the absence of your pursuit, and that creates emotional space for them to process. For the avoidant, this space is important. It gives them the chance to reflect on their own fears and behaviors. They might start to wonder, what happened to them? Why are they not chasing me anymore? And here's what's powerful. When you give them space to feel that absence, it can stir up emotions that have been buried deep down. They may start to question their own choices, their own fear of intimacy, and their own desires for connection. They won't reach out immediately in most cases, but over time, you'll notice subtle shifts. They might initiate a conversation, send a text, or suggest plans, something small at first. But it's a sign. It's a sign that they're starting to feel the weight of your absence, and most importantly, they're starting to feel safe enough to engage again on their own terms, what you're going to feel. Now, I know this process isn't easy. the first day of stopping the chase, the first day of taking your power back, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel like you're walking away from something you desperately want. And that discomfort is normal. The fear, the anxiety, the urge to chase, it's all part of the process. But here's the thing. This discomfort is your growth. By the time you reach the end of day 3, something will have shifted in you. You'll feel more grounded. You'll feel more in control of your emotions, and you'll start to realize something incredibly powerful. You don't need them to feel whole. You don't need their validation, their reassurance, or their attention to be okay. You're learning how to stay in your own energy, how to stand tall and firm in your own emotional strength. And let me tell you, there is nothing more powerful than that. You'll notice that as you stop chasing, you start to regain your own energy. You're no longer giving it away through worry, anxiety, or chasing. Instead, you're focusing on yourself, on your well-being, your growth, your peace. And that, my friend, is when you truly step into your power. But here's the thing, you've got to stay steady. Don't let that fear creep in. Don't let the old patterns of insecurity or self-doubt take hold again. The minute you slip back into reaction mode, the cycle will start again. But as long as you stay grounded and calm, you're going to begin to see the shift. And when you do, it's going to feel like a new beginning. A beginning where you lead with peace, where you hold your own emotional space, and where you never have to chase again. All right, now we're getting to the most important part of this entire process, how to keep this going long term. The 72-hour reset is just the beginning. If you want to create lasting change, to create emotional stability and healthier relationship dynamics, you need to make this a lifestyle, not a quick fix. I want you to think of this as a muscle. Just like any muscle, emotional strength and emotional regulation need constant practice to stay strong. You're not going to flip the cycle once and be done. This is a practice, a commitment to showing up for yourself and your emotional health day after day. And let me be clear, this isn't about playing games. This is about creating a healthy, balanced way of being in a relationship where both of you can show up as your true, authentic selves without the fear or anxiety driving the connection. Sustaining emotional balance. The first thing you need to do is maintain that emotional balance you've worked so hard to achieve. I know it's easy to get swept back into old patterns of emotional reactivity when they pull away again. I know the temptation to react, to chase, to make them come back is always going to be there. But here's the thing, you are stronger than that now. You've built a foundation of calm, and it is up to you to keep reinforcing it. The next time they withdraw, instead of spiraling into fear or doubt, take a deep breath, give yourself the space to stay grounded, ask yourself, what do I need right now? Check in with your emotions, but don't let them control you. When you feel the urge to react, pause. Let the urge pass. I promise you, in that pause, you will find your strength. This emotional balance isn't something you just achieve and move on from. It's something you need to practice consistently. When you stop chasing, when you stop reacting out of fear, you create an emotional environment where you get to be in control. You get to choose how you feel, how you respond, and how you show up. And that's where the power lies. When they'll start to step up, now let's talk about what will happen over time. If you stick to this process, you'll start to notice a shift in how they engage with you. When you're not chasing them, when you're no longer giving in to that emotional push and pull, they'll begin to feel the absence of your pursuit, and that's when they'll start to wonder, where did they go? Why aren't they reacting to me anymore? When the avoidant feels your emotional steadiness, they begin to question their own behavior. They start to realize that their old tactics of retreating, pulling away, and staying distant are no longer working on you. And that's when you'll start to see them change. They'll begin to engage with you on their own terms, at their own pace, when they feel emotionally ready. This is the moment of transformation, but it requires you to remain steady. But here's the kicker. Don't expect immediate results. You've spent time building this emotional habit, so don't get discouraged if you don't see instant change. Stay patient, stay grounded. Trust that your emotional presence will become the foundation that they can eventually rely on. Emotional self leadership. Ultimately, what this entire process boils down to is self leadership. You are the leader in your emotional world. The more you practice emotional neutrality, responding instead of reacting, the more your energy shifts. When you lead with peace, when you remain calm in the face of their distance, you start to teach them that intimacy can coexist with autonomy, that connection can happen without chaos. You're teaching them that you can be emotionally present without demanding anything from them. And here's what happens when you do that. You become magnetic. You stop chasing, and they start wanting to move closer on their own terms. This is where real, lasting intimacy begins. When both of you can coexist in the same space without fear or control, that's when the relationship can transform from one based on anxiety and distance into one based on trust and freedom. But it's important to remember, you can't control their behavior, you can't make them change, you can't fix them, but you can control how you respond. And that's the only thing that really matters in the end. When you stay grounded, calm, and emotionally secure, you give them the space to step up if they're ready. Conclusion, your new reality. So here's the truth. The 72-hour reset is not just a quick fix. It's the beginning of a new way of being. It's about becoming emotionally self-sufficient, emotionally regulated, and emotionally mature. When you stop chasing, stop reacting, and start reflecting, you create a relationship dynamic that's grounded in peace, not fear. And that's when you stop the cycle. That's when you break free. Now, I know this is hard. It's not going to be perfect right away. You'll stumble, you'll have moments of doubt, and you'll want to react. But what I want you to remember is that every time you choose emotional control, you're choosing growth. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you're reinforcing your emotional independence. And here's the beauty of it all. When you finally stop chasing, when you let go of that old pattern, you become the person they've always wanted. You become the partner who doesn't just react emotionally. You become the person who can hold space, create safety, and invite connection. And when they feel that, when they feel the safety in your presence, they won't be able to resist moving closer. This is how you change the dynamic. This is how you break the cycle. And this is how you create lasting emotional health in your relationships. Now go out there and lead with peace, not panic. Lead with reflection, not reaction, and watch how everything shifts.